Hi, it's Heather from Flowers by Jenny Lynn, and today we are going to be making an Easter centerpiece. It's going to look more like a basket, but because it's going to be an all-around arrangement, it still qualifies as a centerpiece. So let's get started. I'm going to show you what we're working with. First, you're going to have a basket that looks like a bird's nest. It's kind of fun and natural looking. You are going to have a liner already in there. You're going to be given a piece of dry foam. It's going to be a half of a brick. And the best way to get this, I should have shown you before stuffing it in there myself, is to get the liner out of the basket. There we go. And then take your foam, slide it into the container. It's going to kind of push and shove on all the sides. If you want to trim down some of the edges a little bit with a knife, kind of like so. Take off just like a little corner there. That will help to hold it into place a little and slide a little easier in. Okay, so we're going to get that into our plastic. And then push that right down and through. The nice thing about this basket and the liner set is that the liner fully sits within that basket. So it's not hanging up over the edge. It's not going to come out on you. Then put a little water in. I usually say to put the water in afterwards, but I just want to make sure that I get it in there. My flowers are going to extend beyond the edges, and I want to make sure that I at least start off with some water. So make sure you do that. If you haven't done this with me before, make sure that you take your foam, fill up your sink halfway with water with plug-in. Let the foam just soak all by itself. Do not push or force it down. That creates air pockets. So just let it do its own thing. Within 5, maybe 10 minutes tops, it'll be fully saturated and will be floating down under the surface a little bit. All right, so the other things that we are going to have, you're going to have a stem of curly willow that we're going to cut into pieces. Kind of fun because of the time of year. It already has some green little tiny leaves budding on it, which I'm not going to take them off. We're going to leave them on there. You're going to have some yellow aster. You should have 3 stems of those. You're going to have 2 large mums. They are in the lavender family. You're going to have 2 stems of daisies. For this design, I'm working with a white one and a lavender one. You're going to have 2 stems of yellow alstroemeria. They called it yellow cheesecake. I kind of like the name, so that's the one I chose. Sometimes because of the name, I choose a flower, and sometimes because I like the color, but that was a really cool name. Then we're going to have peach carnations. You're going to have 3 of those. We're going to have 3 sweet, unique roses. They are very nice. They're not a light pink. They're not a hot pink. They're somewhere in the middle there, which is a great shade to work with. We're going to be working with some orange mini carnations. They just came in, so they are very, very tight. And then you're going to have a grouping of gypsophilia, also known as baby's breath. And the last thing of our flowers and foliage is going to be our plumosa grass. I'm going to put that in my watering can because it wants to just fall off the desk. So that'll keep it secured. As far as our hard goods go, other than the basket and the foam in your kit, you are going to have a piece of bind wire that I will already have pre-cut for you. We're going to use that early on, so I'm going to keep it out now. The things to save for later are the 2 kitchen skewers. If you don't have wooden picks, these are the next best thing. And for what we're working with, I needed them to be slender. So sometimes the wooden picks that we use here at the shop, they're a little thicker than what you need. And then we have 2 foam carrots that have been wrapped in orange colored twine with a little bit of raffia or straw stuffed in the top, dyed green. But those were kind of fun. Sometimes we'll use eggs or birds or nests. And this time I wanted to work with some carrots. So let's get started with our design. We're going to cut our curly willow. Hopefully you will have at least 2 breaks. I'm going to make sure that you have at least 2 branches on your stem. Mine has a 3rd. It's very possible yours will too. And I'm going to cut at least that lower one off. We're probably not going to use this piece. You might want to use it for another project. I don't need it right now. So why I want to put this in first, you can put it in last, and totally that's up to you, but I'm going to put this in first because I want to get my height in, and I'm going to angle it into my foam. This is the wide part of the foam. This is the skinnier part. I'm going to go into the skinnier. I'm going to angle it down in as deep as I can get it. That way it's working with the side of the basket here. And I'm going to take my other singular piece and do that same thing on the other side. If you just have 2 branches, they will do just fine. Now, with your bind wire, I'm going to wrap it around my 3 fingers. I'm going to start on the back side here and hold it down by my ring finger and wrap over my middle and my first finger. We're just going to do that a couple times so that we get some loops out of this. And then I'm just going to cut one side, cut one bottom apart. And this gives me 3 pieces of bind wire to work with. These are long. You don't necessarily need them that long. But what I'm going to do is use this bind wire as a twisting tie and to tie these pieces together. So right up here where all 3 of them kind of join together, that 3rd piece has a little bit, this is where the end of it is, coming off of it. I don't want to bind right at that end because it will slip right out because of the tension that it's creating by being curved over itself. I'm going to wrap it around twice, and then on one of the sides I'm going to twist, twist, twist like you're tying the bread shut, and then clip off those ends and then fold that down. Now, this might be kind of cool to have these pieces curling up into space, but I'm just going to wrap them back down around and into our basket area and take another piece of bind wire. And I don't mind that these tendrils are kind of sticking out. It has a natural look to it. We're going to go around twice. Get good and tight. Twist, twist, twist. And then clip them short. And then lay them against. You're going to bring those bound areas close to you. So those are 2 spots where I have wire bound. And after we get our flowers in, they will be less noticeable. This is natural product, so it's not going to be, I feel like mine's leaning a little bit, and that's okay. Once we get the bulk of our flowers in here, the lean might not be as noticeable. You can kind of work with and massage the stems of the curly willow to get them to cooperate a little bit more, and sometimes they will. All right, so many times we will green first and then put in our flowers. Realized I need to put this off to the side just a little bit there. And sometimes we'll flower first. The greenery that we're going to use is very light and airy, and we are just using it to kind of get a little bit of coverage, not a lot. You are going to get 2 pieces. We're just going to break it apart. I might be tucking in a 3rd piece for you. And this is not necessarily going to be the edges or how large our arrangement is going to be. But I just want to have a little bit of this softness. See how soft it is? Kind of sticking out here and there around the arrangement. We're not going to have any harsh, hard greenery other than those that might come on the rows already. And I'm just sticking them in. We don't need to have that long of a stem. So again, just here and there around my arrangement, light and wispy. I'm going to grab a 3rd piece. It's just off camera a little bit. Another piece of this plumosa grass in here. And again, like we've broken down many other greenery before, we're just taking small bite-sized pieces. This one has 3 branches on the side. This one only has two, like a helicopter, and this was the top. So maybe I'll have that sticking out the top. This little piece in the front here, piece in the back, and my helicopter on the side. So we can still see a lot of the foam because the flowers are going to cover all that up for us. All right, now with this design, because you can see it all the way around and we have at least 2 or 3 stems of each flower, it's really not going to matter. I know sometimes I'll say, does matter, placement is important, but for this, because we're working all the way around and we're going to mimic the colors on all sides, you can put like your 2 large flowers here, you can stagger them for one another. You have 3 carnations and 3 roses. You can do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, however you would like to get them around. I'm going to do some placements, but I'm not going to say you have to put it here. That's going to be up to you. And once you see your packet of flowers, you'll see what I mean. You've got a lot of fun flowers to work with. The only ones that I would say, hey, you have 2 of these, are your big mums or your 2 alstroemeria. Do I want them high? Do I want them low? The mums are going to be a big piece. You might want to consider where you're going to place them. So I'm actually going to get my 2 large mums in first, taking off all the little, mine had lots of little stems on it that were unnecessary. So I'm going to put one in the back here, just raised up a little bit. Even though it's going to be an all-around arrangement, I still tend to have a more prominent front side. And get one down low, so you can still see him back here. Now you could have started working with your roses. I did start cleaning my roses while I was talking and getting off all the leaves. They're kind of thorny this time. So you might want to stop, and before you do anything, clean off those thorns on those roses. You can use your scissors and just trim right up the stem and cut those thorns right off as close as you can without damaging the stem itself. Or you can use a knife. And if it's sharp enough, you can take it and just slice them off. All right, so with my alstroemeria, I'm going to get one on one side over here. And then one on the other side. That way I at least have these guys playing opposite sides. Everything else can kind of be put around, like I'll say pizza style. You want a little bit of pepperoni spread around on your pizza, a little bit of peppers, a little bit of onions, a little bit of olives, and that's how we're going to work the rest of the flowers. So I'm going to go back to my roses here. Always want to give them a nice cut on an angle. This might be too long. It might not be. Sometimes when I'm going around on a centerpiece, I will come back and do another cut once I've made a decision. I'm leaving the stems at least 4, maybe 6 inches long. I don't have to go super short here, even though the basket feels a little tight, because we've created this nice arc over the top with a curly willow that helps to expand the space. So we can do that as well while we're placing our flowers into place. I'm going to just give this a turn so you can see. Now I'm going to work down with my carnations. They are the next thing that's the next largest in line, we'll say. I'm going to fluff those puppies right up. They just came in as well. I had been sitting here and playing with them. There we go. We get them open. So given that I put 1 rose here, 1 rose here, and a rose tucked around the back side here, I'll probably put a carnation here, rotate that right around, and a carnation on the other side. There's my knife. This one I probably have about 8 inches long. Pull this mum up a little bit. I don't like moving flowers too much once I get them into the place where I want them to go. And the reasoning behind it is you don't want to have too many holes. If you keep taking a flower out, putting it in, taking it out, putting it back in, you've then created more holes and it's starting to weaken the foam. So sometimes it's better to cut twice. I know in here, I moved the mum up a little bit. I felt I didn't need it so close to the lip of the basket. And that is something I probably could have thought about ahead of time, but seeing it through the eye of the camera here and not face to face on the front, and I did it backwards. Sometimes I need to change that afterwards, but I just wanted to remind you, try not to cut and replace into different holes too many times. Now with this mum here, I broke all the laterals that I could off that I felt were long enough. These guys, this one here especially, is way too short to leave by himself, so I kept both of them together. And I'm going to do the same with my stem of white daisies. They just came in, so they are very tight as well, but they will open a little bit more over time. And these two are too short to have them as individuals, so I'm going to leave them together and put their rest of the stem off to the side. Gonna unbury my mini carnations because they're going to be next. Some of my shorter heads fell off, so I put them aside. All right, now I'm going to work around with my mums. Cut them down a little bit more. I'm going to get a piece off to the side here. I'm just kind of tucking them around the arrangement. Where do I see a hole? When I see a hole, that's where I'm going to stick a flower. So show you this backside here as well. Now I'm taking all my mini carnations off their stems. They are super tight. Some of them just have a little bitty bit of color. I'm just going to tuck them around. This one is kind of open, so I'm just going to help him out, make him a little bit more open. Okay, again, this one is a little bit open, so I can force him a little bit more to get some color here. And even the little ones that don't have much color, I'm not going to waste that little bit of green and orange, and I'm going to get that tucked right into place. Oh, one more little baby. All right. Now we're going to work with our solidago or yellow aster. And I'm pulling off any of the greenery that is a little too wrinkled or has a tear in it, or maybe has a little bit of a dark tip to it. I'm getting those pieces off. Some of them don't need that much playing with. All right, now with them, I'm going to break them into two pieces. You're going to have a little bit to play with here. So I'm only cutting off maybe 4 inches off the top and then leaving the base down. I'm going to do that with one more piece. This one's another 4 inches probably from the top to the bottom where I cut, and then the base, so that I can get some yellow tufts here and there around in my arrangement. And this definitely helps with covering up that green foam that's in there. This guy's a little littler, but I'm still gonna break him in half. Just a little bit smaller, I probably should have said. So wherever I'm seeing foam is where I'm kind of tucking in that solid egg. Wonderful. Let me get this up so you can see. Our arrangement here. Okay, and the last piece of floral material that we're going to use is going to be our baby's breath or gypsophilia. We're going to break this apart as well. You're going to have about 3 breaks that you can take off of it. Now, one was just a side lateral there. Then you have a choice here. You can either cut this little guy off, which I think is too small to cut. I would cut this longer piece here. Cut him off at the Y, leaving that littler branch still attached to the long stem. You can see that here. That way you have more control over how long you want to leave this stem. If you're lucky enough, you might have a piece here that you can then cut into 2 pieces. And again, I'm just going to come back in and do some more tucking. We needed to bring in a little bit of white to go with the white daisies. Sometimes the dark looks darker and the light looks lighter. Now, the last thing for us to work with is going to be our carrots. And remember me telling you that it is a styrofoam carrot covered in twine with a little bit of raffia or straw up at the top, dyed in a green. So down on the end, they left a little bit of a space where you can take the pointed end of your skewer and just tuck that. There isn't a hole already, but I did make a sample picture. So I've already created a hole here and I'm just gently pushing it in a little. You don't need to get it in much more than, you know, a couple centimeters in there. Then I'm cutting the skewer into pieces. You don't need it too long. You can save the other part of it for another project that you would like to work with. And again, I'm just not putting it in too far. Try making the stick about 6 to 7 inches long. And then look at your arrangement. And I like to group them together. But if you want to put them in separate spots, you can. If you still have leftover eggs from an egg hunt that you've done previously, or you have styrofoam eggs or a bird or a butterfly, you can put those in this arrangement as well. Many times I've told you, once your arrangement is done, save some of those components and you can reuse them over the years in putting them into a bowl or decorating plants. So this is a way that you can incorporate into your arrangement. This time I chose carrots. And there we go. That is our finished arrangement with lovely spring flowers. Thank you for joining me. We will have some arrangements coming up. There will not be any videos done for our next couple months. My time is a little bit more limited with the holidays that are coming up and being away. So as we get closer to the fall, I will probably do a video in October for a Halloween arrangement, for the Thanksgiving centerpiece and the Christmas centerpiece. Those seem to be ones that more people will gather at home and work together as a family unit to make arrangements together. So I love that you're following me online. Join me again anytime. Stop by, say hello, come and grab some flowers and make a DIY arrangement at your home. This is Heather from Flowers by Jenny Lynn.